Okay. All right. Welcome to the April 9th meeting of the Milton Select Board. Please join us in the recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, Republic,
And to the republic, which is
One nation.
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you for that. Before we begin, I'm going to ask you just to indulge me just for a moment for a personal item. Yesterday, retired Massachusetts State Police Sergeant Scott Jennings passed away from the coronavirus. I was fortunate to be able to work with Scott many years ago in the anti-corruption unit of the Attorney General's office. And as good a trooper, and he wasn't sergeant yet, as good a trooper as Scott was, he was a better person. My standard for any endeavor is to do some good work and to have a little fun along the way. And Scott more than exceeded that standard. If anyone who's listening to this takes any time to themselves tonight or takes any time with their God, if you could give a moment of thought to Massachusetts State Police Sergeant Scott Jennings. Appreciate it. Okay. COVID-19
Mr.
update
Chair,
is,
if I might,
is Caroline Kinsella.
Mr. Chair, if I,
Oh, Richard, yes. Yes, Richard.
I did not know that sad news, but for our colleagues and anyone, Sergeant Jennings spent a lot of time assigned to the Norfolk County DA's office and worked many cases with our investigators over the years, including some very high-profile cases. And as sad as I am to hear you say that, I just wanted people to know that there was a very strong nexus between Scott while he was in the DA's office and the Milton Police Department over the years.
Thank you for that, Richard. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that. Item 2, COVID-19 update. Is Caroline Kinsella on the line? And I think Hillary, she's under Health Department. Maybe if you could unmute Health Department, please.
Thank you, Chair Zulus. So today in Milton, we have a total of 68 positive cases. So that's in total. We had 4 more since yesterday, and we're posting that every day on the town website. And you can go to that page and look to see how many positive cases are. I will say also that, this virus is spreading in our community, and that number is a low number. And I know that there is a lot more people in the community that do have the virus, and they're spreading it either unknowingly or they're having very mild symptoms. So I will like to ask the residents to stay at home with their immediate household family members to celebrate the holidays, and that's very difficult to do. It's a difficult time. I would love to go to my sister's house and go over there and eat with 25 people, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay home. I would love to have my son come from New York and spend time with me, but he's in New York. So it is a very difficult time right now for people to be staying home, and I'm just encouraging them to stay at home and celebrate with their immediate family members. So that's my report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. Any comments or questions from the members?
I have one question, Mr. Chair. Caroline, I see some communities are starting to go out and proactively test in their seniors' residences. I don't mean private, like group like Winter, Unquity, Fuller, in an effort to get a stronger idea. As you're correct, it seems that all the experts believe that the virus is stronger than what we know, just because not everyone's been tested. Have you heard that at all? I read a briefing about this yesterday that some communities are going to start to do this, and I just want to know what your thoughts were on it.
Yes, and I'm hoping that happens here in Milton too. I have heard that Fallon has mentioned this also to me, that they're thinking about maybe going to people's houses and testing I know the National Guard has gone to Brush Hill Care Center to test some of the residents there. But I think until we get the clear picture of how many people have really been infected and to quarantine and isolate those people, we're not going to have the clear picture. We just don't know how many people have been infected, and we just need that data. We need the numbers, and we need more testing sites. So I'm hoping that will happen when they get some more testing sites up. I have heard that maybe Fallon or some other company may be coming to someone's residence to test. So I'm hoping that, that can happen in Milton, in the next coming weeks. I'm hopeful.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have another question, but I can come back to it. I don't have to do it right now.
No, Richard, go ahead if you want, because I'm hoping to move to the BID item because I don't want to, I think all of our BID Milton people are here. So go ahead if you have another question.
All right, go ahead and do that, because my question can follow up that with BID Milton, and
okay.
Go ahead.
I know we want to take up the curfew issue.
Right. That was my question. So
okay.
I can wait though.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have all of the BID Milton people. I see Rich Fernandez, Dan Nawadney. I see Lieutenant Caputo. I think that's all we have. Mike Dennehy, could you tell us who we have for that item 4, which is the discussion of DPWR for BID Milton COVID-19 site?
Yeah, that's exactly who we need on the call.
So it's those 3. So Hillary, if you could unmute Rich Fernandez, Dan Nawadney, Nadwarney, and Nadwarney, sorry, and Lieutenant Caputo of the Milton Police Department. All right, Mike, do you want to tee this up? Mike Dennehy, do you want to tee this up, or do you want Lieutenant Caputo?
Sure, I can. How about if I introduce Lieutenant Caputo and some of the work that he's been doing? So as many of you know or have seen on TV, some of the local hospitals are starting to set up COVID testing sites. There was a conversation a couple of weeks ago that Milton BID may be interested in doing something like this. So I figured it'd be a good time to bring everyone together and talk about the plan and the process and the procedure. Lieutenant Caputo has been working closely with Mr. Nawadney, Mr. Hannon, and the hospital. If something like this takes place, there is preparation that's involved. So some people may have seen some preparatory steps taking place at the DPW yard at 629 Randolph Ave. So I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Caputo for more detail, and BID Milton can and explain what's going on in the world and with this process.
And before Lieutenant Caputo, I'm just going to ask the members if you can to mute yourselves because we are getting some feedback. So if we could just mute ourselves while we're listening to the others, that would work. Go ahead, Chuck.
Okay, thanks for having me, everyone. My name's Chuck Caputo. I'm a lieutenant with the Milton Police Department. I'm also the chair of the Emergency Planning Committee, and we were looking at numerous sites, and don't get me wrong, the DPW was probably the 5th site that we were talking about in terms of setting up a potential testing area for the town of Milton. Actually, not the town of Milton, for BID Milton. They had some specific requirements that they were looking to have met in terms of like location, security, being able to, lock the area down at nighttime and so forth. After much discussion and, some changes to the plan and so forth, probably the most feasible site right now, if this goes forward, is probably the DPW yard. The site itself, I was up there 2 days ago with the fire department. We were setting up 2 of our hazmat tents. Basically, the tents themselves, one would be used for a registration purpose, and the second tent would be used for the testing area itself. I was up there today with the high winds and whatnot, making sure everything was ratcheted down, and I was also talking to some of the DPW workers that approached me. They did have concerns about potentially people coming in that may have the virus and so forth into their area of work. Taking a lot of that into consideration, I met with hospital staff, and when we were doing that, the director of public works came over, and also Bill Ritchie came over from facilities. Our initial plan a couple weeks ago about traffic flow, we changed. It's not going to be a plan whereby cars come in and then go around a building and exit. We are going to have the cars come in to the right-hand side of the DPW yard. If this is the plan in place by the salt shed, they would go over to where the first tent is for registration. They all have to be pre-registered, is what I'm understanding. Then they would, once they were given the clear, they would move up to the second tent, which is only going to be about 15 to 20 feet away. At first, it was a much wider area that they would have to traverse to get to the second tent, but not anymore. And then they would loop off and basically make a teardrop U-turn and come back out the way they came. I feel, and the other people that were up there felt that this would be the best way to keep anybody in their vehicles away from, the workers that are up there, from the buildings, and to make it a much easier flow in and out. As long as the numbers, that we were getting from the hospital, that, they were looking at, probably 20 to 25 tests per hour on a 4-hour basis, or 5 tops, which would make it out to 100 to 125 tests per day of pre-registered people. And I believe there's different classifications of people, different levels. And I was under the impression that it would be more the non-severe people that would be coming in to either eliminate, concerns about possibly having the COVID, or just if the doctors wanted them to get tested based on what they were talking about. But I'd let the hospital talk more about the potential of people coming into that area. And that's basically it, after examining all the sites and so forth. And I do have to say, Milton Academy stepped up. They authorized us to use one of their parking lots, but it just wasn't feasible, that parking lot. It was too small for what we were looking at, so I give them credit. But some of the other areas were just not suitable for different, reasons. And this is the best site that I can determine right now, based on some of the criteria about location to the hospital, about security, about, the traffic flow issue. And, one of the things I don't want is, I don't want people to be driving down the road and, seeing a tent set up. We have them strategically placed so that it's not visible from the roadway, where people would just, come into the site.
Chuck, you were breaking up a little bit for me. I'm not sure if you're breaking up for other people. You might just repeat those last couple of points, because you're breaking up a little bit, at least for me.
Yeah, the last couple of things I stated was, after many site location inspections of different sites, the DPW yard was, potentially chosen if this does go forward, because we have, secure access that we can, maintain. We could have a police presence up there. The tents are away from the roadway, so you wouldn't have the general public, stopping in without being pre-registered, and it's a lot easier to control the traffic flow coming in and out. And, the hospital would staff these tents themselves. I have a trailer already in place there also, that has, a bathroom and areas that the workers could rest in and so forth, that would, take care of some of the problems that possibly about, a worker going into the DPW, where the locker rooms are and so forth, or the eating areas for the DPW workers, to alleviate some concerns that they had also. And that's more or less what I have right now in terms of the site. I'd be more than willing to answer any questions. Okay.
Mike, can I jump in just a little bit? Can I just say a couple words here after Lieutenant Dan?
Yeah. Let's. Yeah. Yes. So what we're going to do is, have everyone speak on this, and then we'll open up for questions from the members. So I want to recognize the president of the Milton, Rich Fernandez, who we're fortunate to have here. So Rich, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Lieutenant Caputo, for all your help. I know we've been kind of on and off with this over the last several weeks. Just to be totally transparent, you know, we as a system, part of the Beth Israel Lahey system, we were all ready to do this, but the one area, the actual swabs, were something that we were as a system short on, so we had to kind of pull back from this testing, expanding our testing. But we are in a better position, and as the lieutenant mentioned, I'll let Dan Nadworthy in just in a minute just talk about some of the logistics and the testing levels, because it is by appointment and reasonably higher risk patient. This is not just anybody, the worried well, who can call up and say, I want to get tested. They have to have signs, symptoms, some other kind of medical issue to make them a little higher risk. We're not at just overall test anybody that comes up. So just want to make that clear. And I would also say that, you know, we've done a lot of work, and we wanted to come before the select board tonight, just because we really see the DPW site. There's 6 levels of testing. We're right now, literally as of last night, got into level 5. Level 6 would just be what I would call outpatient or just community testing. Literally anybody can come as long as we can man the fort there. So what we have looked at in the last kind of 24 to 48 hours is actually doing it right on site to start with. But I do believe the DPW site, depending on how we work the kinks out there, if it really expands to kind of community testing, and we either need a bigger site for more volume or a secondary site for additional volume, the DPW site does look, after Lieutenant and Dan and John Hannon, our Director of Security's work, does look like a good setup. We would prefer to do it, as we talked about before, on site, just come from IT connectivity and just being proximate to the hospital, back and forth logistics. So our plan is to actually try to get up our on-site testing next week. And then we wanted to just make sure there weren't any other votes or things that have to happen. If in a week or two we can get to more broad scale testing, I do think the DPW site would be kind of either our secondary or our next big jump. Makes sense? So I think what we're asking tonight is for consideration and the ability to use it as what we're calling kind of a phase 2, but we are going to have testing next week on our site for this levels 1 through 5, which will greatly expand. It'll basically be your primary care doctor. If you have asthma or some other comorbidity, we'll be able to refer you to this site, and we'll get them all registered. Dan, did you want to add anything, or did I misspeak on any?
No, I think you covered the big things here. And like you said, is the criteria that we're using for this really is associated with chronic health conditions and for symptomatic patients. So that's a big part of it. We really don't want to get asymptomatic patients at this point. The tests that we're using are are better suited for people who are symptomatic, and it gives a lower rate of false negatives if we're using it versus just global screening with patients. The process that we're following, been working with both our partners at Needham and Plymouth to kind of come up with a single platform of how we will do this consistently. And patients we registered, and not only registered for the day, but actually be registered into time blocks. Talking with Lieutenant Caputo about how to manage traffic flow and egress access to the site. We wanted to not have people trying to queue up at 8 o'clock in the morning for a 4 o'clock slot. So we're going to try and slot people into appointment schedules and go from there. As far as the logistics of it going, it really is a 2-step process where the first tent would be our non-clinical staff who would validate the person's identity, give them the basic information sheet about how to properly quarantine at home, a phone number to reach questions, and some information about the turnaround time of the test. They would then move forward to the next point where we'd have a clinical staff member, either a nurse or a physician's assistant, that would perform the test, and then they'd be off on the way. Talking with Fallon Ambulance, and I see Peter's on a call today, and his special operations team, we talked about also having an EMS asset on scene just in case somebody was to develop more substantial medical concerns, that they would be able to assist us with that part of it. And they've also offered to help us with some of the swabbing, like you've mentioned, and like the health department mentioned, they have the ability to do swabbing themselves. But again, this is for low-level patients, patients who have more concerning medical complaints during the screening process will be referred into the emergency department for the same type of testing to take place. Hopefully that covers the majority of it.
Thank you, Dan. Does Peter Rasco have anything to add before we go to questions or comments from members? Could you, Hillary, unmute Peter just to? Hi, Peter. Peter, you're unmuted. Do you have anything to add before we have questions or comments?
Hey, Mike. No, I don't. Mike Dennehy let me know about the meeting. I just wanted to be here to pledge our support. And Dan summarized, we did have a conversation with our team for about 15, 20 minutes this afternoon. So we're going to follow the lead of the town and BI Milton. So
thank you, Peter. All right, questions or comments from the members?
So I do, Michael,
Yep.
if no one else does.
Yep.
So, Chuck, thanks so much from my colleagues. You hear the term a lot, Local Emergency Planning Committee. Lieutenant Caputo's committee, which we started right after 9/11 happened, has members from nearly every entity of government as well as our political and private partners. And sadly, he's preparing for this day for a long time. I just don't think anyone thought it would come to reality. But I noticed, and for Rich, I'm sure you're aware, Manor Health Center opened on Monday on Squantum Street. I don't know if you've taken a ride to look at it. I've been over both yesterday and today. It's a much smaller footprint. I think that logistically what you've got available here at the DPW yard is far more suitable. They're really squeezed in, but it's still very orderly. I watched it actually twice. I went over yesterday. They're actually right out on the sidewalk. It's like right there on Squantum Street. So Chuck, this is more you can sit in the tents with they don't even get out of their cars. They come in, they go in, and all right. So it's from an operational standpoint, the way this is being done, and the fact that you're adding the EMS element, I think that you've taken your time, you've done a great job putting this together. Sadly, we need it, but I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. And I thank you all for, it's hopefully something that that we wouldn't need, but clearly we do need it.
Other comments or questions from the members?
I have one. This is Katie. I'm going to vote in favor of it. I just want to thank Lieutenant Caputo for all of the plans that he's put in place. It sounds as though you've adequately addressed the DPW workers' concerns. And thank you to President Fernandez and the staff and the board at BID Milton Hospital for all of their efforts in taking on this new challenge. It's something that's really needed, a lot more testing. So I think this is a good thing.
Thank you, Katie. Ms. Collins.
No, I'll just echo what Richard and Katie said. I'm also in favor of this, and I'm thankful for the excellent job that both the hospital and Lieutenant Caputo and all our emergency personnel are providing for our residents.
So I just have one final question, Mr. Chair. So this is going to be a BID operation versus a town operation, correct? Okay, so now because let's say if it's a town operation, I don't think we need to vote on it. But where's BID? I'll make a motion that we approve this as presented by Lieutenant Caputo and President Hernandez.
Can we just wait? I just wanted to ask Mike Dennehy about any other considerations or any other issues on this.
I do think we got to take a look at, and I have Paige Eppolito running down Maya because we're self-insured, and any liability issues that may, President Fernandez and I had a quick conversation yesterday about it, but the Public Works and Parks Department and Consolidated Facilities, people that work down there, seems like that issue was addressed, but in order to just cross our T's and dot our I's, make sure that our general insurance company is okay with this and that town council has been aware of this now that it seems to be taking fruition. And again, President Fernandez said they're not at that level 6 yet, but preparations are being made. I think we need to cross that T and dot that I.
So let me ask Rich, what's the timing? Would the DPW be implemented at level 6? Is that the idea? And what do you think the timing is on that?
Yeah, so two things. So one, we definitely wouldn't do it until we got to level 6. And I think we would also just want to assess what we can handle at our site. If we can handle the vast majority of it, we would continue to do it. You know, anything you do at 2 locations gets more complicated, but if we could handle it at our site, we'd do it. If not, we would. I think what we're presenting tonight is having the DPW either as a second option or a bigger, better option to move our operations. And in terms of level 6, it really has to do with our ability at the PILH system to be able to get sufficient swabs to be able to handle that population. Because when you turn it open to the general public, it will be a massive operation. And I'm not saying we don't need it, but we have to make sure that we can have the right swabs
And in terms of the timing, if we do need to run down the insurance on this, is this something that you need a decision on tonight, or could it wait till next Tuesday, or should we could make a decision subject to review by insurance in terms of your timing?
I can't imagine we'll be at level 6 next week. So I would say next Tuesday, I would defer to you all however you'd like to do it, but we will just get up and running and work out the kinks for level 5 next week. I think we have more time. I'd love to say it's going to be realistically no will be.
Right. Mike Dennehy, do you know what the timing is on running down the insurance on this?
No, Paige is working on it. Yeah, this is based on a couple of conversations that we've had through the process. It's been a very seamless process. All parties involved, I want to thank them for making it so seamless. Obviously, the hospital and Lieutenant Caputo, first and foremost. But Paige has been in touch with Maya. We're just waiting to hear back.
Okay, so that could happen.
Chair.
So that could happen any day.
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Chair, this is Richard Wells. I think that the state, our state of emergency and the governor's state of emergency, I think is going to trump any issues that we have there. I think there's far more significant operations going on within this Commonwealth now involving partnerships between communities and private partners than any concerns we have with what is being presented here. So I'd be in favor of making the motion tonight and passing it. You want to put a caveat pending any input from town council or I'm fine with that, but I'd be far more comfortable. These are things that we know need to be done, having things queued up, ready to go. They put a lot of work into this because even though Rich is giving you what he hopes is a perspective, these numbers have continued to jump dramatically each and every day. And I'd rather do it proactively so that they're not coming back to us. And we have this ready for them when the day happens that they do need to become operational.
Mr. Chair, if I will, and to Member Wells's point, I'm sure Maya is aware of other situations throughout the Commonwealth, and it should be an easy, shouldn't be a long stretch for them to find out.
Other comments or questions from
So
Ms. Conlon?
if we have an issue with Maya, I mean, is there a possibility of a hospital insurance just covering this location for a temporary time frame and under its policy, and just adding as an additional insured? This is the first I'm hearing of the insurance issue, so I think we should have a backup if we have any issues with Maya.
Mike, I mean, I would be happy to check with running up the flagpole on our end. I'll have to figure out who I actually call about this one, but I know where to start. So I'm happy to do that on our side too, to kind of see if there's any creative way to do this to make sure either one of us can make sure we're covered on this one.
Yeah, hopefully given the emergency declaration and the state emergency orders, this shouldn't be an issue for us, we hope.
They're practically letting me be a doctor if I need to be in the state, so be careful. Liability should be nothing for this.
I agree. I think that we're fine here. There are far more, as I say, there are far more stronger, bigger partnerships going on now between other communities and their private partners in this effort. So really have no concerns. We've done more in training exercises between privates and the town on town property before without my getting involved than this will be.
Well,
Ms. Collins.
I wonder too, because the state has tried to extend some protections for healthcare workers, if this would be covered under that as well. So.
All right, well, yes, this, certainly there may be other partnerships going on. This is ours, so we need to make sure we do this one right. But any other comments or questions or motions?
Well, Richard made a motion.
Did he make the motion? I wasn't sure if I didn't get a hold.
Yes,
So
I've made the motion. The motion is out there. I vote to approve this plan as presented by Lieutenant Caputo, the chair of the LEPC, on behalf of BID, Kenneth Smokiness, BID Milton, pending any comments by Maya going forward, which I still strongly object to and think we don't need, but that's a side comment. The motion stands as I've just read it.
all right, motion's been made.
I'll second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. And I think it's technically we're just approving the plan and the use of the DPW yard connection to that. And so I'll just add that as a friendly amendment, Richard, just use of the DPW yard for that purpose. And then if that's fine with you.
I'm fine with the use, the plan.
Yep.
As presented. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I mean, and that could change if it happens. But I'm happy. I'll take your friendly emotion. I'll take that.
Great. Any other comments or questions from the members? All those in favor, this will be a roll call vote. Ms. Collins.
Yes.
Ms. Conlon.
Yes.
Mr. Wells.
Yes.
Mr. Zulus, yes. Thank you, Rich, and your colleagues. Thank you to Chuck Caputo. Thank you for all the work you're doing, and good luck and stay safe out there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your support and all the work Lieutenant and everybody on his team has done. So, and we will keep you posted when we get to this phase. So.
Thank you, Rich.
Yep, I'd like to mention, just thank you to everybody in the town. It's coming together, and we're just, all working together, and that's what needs to be done. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, I neglected, before we go back to we'll have the discussion of the curfew. I just want to go back. I think we're all set, Rich.
We're going to jump off. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I didn't mention public comment. So Hillary, I'm going to ask you to unmute the phones just to see if we have any public comment before we go any further. So I'm just going to ask Hillary, please unmute the phones. And if anyone is on for public comment, please speak up now. Going once for public comment, going twice. All right, doesn't sound like there's any public comment. Hillary, if you could mute all the phones again, or mute all the participants again, except for the members of the board and Mr. Dennehy. And under item 2, the COVID-19 update, I think we can take the curfew item that we began discussing, or was raised on Tuesday night. And I believe we have, Hillary, if you could unmute Milton Police, I believe that's Chief King. Is that you, Chief King?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Okay. And Mike Dennehy, do we have Kevin Freitag from Town Council's office?
No, Kevin couldn't join us this evening, but
Okay.
he did send his comments along with respect to. It's just a quick history. I know that this board talked about the curfew issue on Tuesday night. I'm not sure how far down the road we went on a letter that was submitted by Mayor Curtatone and other members that were on a mayor's call that took place Sunday afternoon. There was a letter that came in late on yesterday. Trying to think, I'm losing track of days here, but either way, they were asking for and the answer or to sign on to it. So Kevin was looking at that as well. Basically, some of the mayors and town managers in the Commonwealth are looking for stricter stay-in orders from the governor, and they were submitting and polling communities that were on that call to ask the Baker-Polito administration for some stronger language, which would give them more teeth in their communities to better police, if you will, or control social distancing. That letter was to be submitted yesterday by 6 p.m. A subsequent letter came in about a half an hour ago with a deadline of 9 p.m. or 9 a.m. tomorrow, I believe. And it's been refined a little bit. As I read through the email very quickly, it talked about it having a little less strong language in it, but that's another curfew type layer, if you will, that's also floating around out there.
All right. Maybe we'll hear from Chief King with kind of an overview from his perspective, and then we'll have comments or questions from the members. Chief, do you have any general thoughts about, and I think the discussion was around a 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew, similar to what they're doing in Boston.
Sure. I don't want to say I'm against it, but I don't know that I feel there's a need on the police end. And I base that on a couple things is, I know this, Boston, Somerville, I think just, the town's a little different. We don't have a lot of shops open at night, even essential services where people getting food and stuff like that and congregating afterwards. I can tell you, I checked that call volume, kind of comparing 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. to, the opposite, the daytime hours. And that's based on from really the start of this COVID crisis till now. And it's about 80%
It's like
to
the
20%.
number 3, the number 1 is if they do that. I never ordered the number before.
Our issues are about 80% during the opposite hours, about 20% during those, proposed curfew hours. So, we are having a lot of calls, we're doing a lot of extra patrols and trying to deal with people congregating, not social distancing. I believe friendly social distancing and advocating that and all those things. I'm flexible, if you guys decide to impose it, we'll deal with it. There might be some enforcement
regular chicken soup and then
Mike Lynch, could you mute yourself because we're getting a lot of feedback from you, Mike Lynch? You can mute yourself. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about the Chief. Could you go ahead?
No problem. So I guess the issue is there a need is probably the way I look at it. I don't know that there's a major need, but, I respect whatever the decision is, we'll deal with it. We don't have a lot of night problems related to this pandemic. Most of the issues we're having are during the day. This would be slightly different. If somebody even went for their walk alone at 9:15 after putting their kids to bed, they would be in violation. But if a group was kind of getting together at 8:30, they wouldn't be. So, it's not really my place on that. That's more of a health probably issue to determine, a health expert, I should say. But I'm not against it. I think any public, awareness or reminder certainly has a value. I do think we're slightly different maybe than Boston in terms of the problems we deal with at night versus the problems we deal with in the daytime. So I don't feel there's a dire need on my end on the police department.
Thank you, Chief. Comments or questions from the members? Ms. Collins, I'm sorry.
I don't know. I don't really have a question. I mean, if there's not a need from a police perspective, then I don't know what question I would have for Chief King. I guess other than maybe would this create an issue for you? I take your point about, and I had thought about the same thing, knowing that when my kids were younger and I put them to bed, sometimes I would go out for a walk. That's immediately what I thought of, but I don't know how many people really do that. And would it cause any issues for police, I guess?
So let me ask Mr. Dennehy and Chief King, do we know, other than Boston, I think you mentioned Somerville. Are there any other communities or communities of similar size that are doing this or considering this?
So I took, go ahead, Chief, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Mike. I do not know of any other than Boston and Somerville that I'm aware of, but I wouldn't know who's considering it.
Sure.
I
Michael,
did send a quick,
Richard, can
I did
okay.
send a quick, oh, sorry, go ahead, Richard.
So to that phone call, yeah, I saw the communities that answered you today, Norfolk and Midway. Sharon, they're completely, we are closer to what Dorchester or High Park, but as you know, that was a big concern for many of the mayors and communities going out as far as like up to Essex County, the North Shore, all asking about it, cities and towns both. And to the chief's point, I agree with it. It's not so much, and as I wrote today to you in this, it's not looking to make work for the police department, or this isn't something you arrest away. And I think Mayor Walsh said that, and I like the way theirs was written. It's more of a public health concern, and just one more stronger message to say to the people, look, you got to be off the streets. But, and the chief and I have already talked about this. If it's an issue for him, then I'm fine withdrawing it. I'm not looking this to be, as none of the other mayors were, including Mayor Walsh or town managers. We're not looking for people in jails. We're looking to get people to pay attention more. And the issues where we are having the trouble is like the parks and the kids at night and just going out in the warmer it gets, more it becomes an issue for the chief. And I think more my thought here is from a public health aspect, one more, I don't want to say bullet in the gun, but one more tool in the toolbox for public health to use to protect our community. I mean, I'm sure you saw the report today that I don't know how they're finding this out, but from our sewerage, they can tell that there's way more people infected than what is being reported. So that was my thought. And I like the way it's written in the city of Boston. It's written more as a public health order versus a policing order. And as the chief knows, and as I just said, I didn't propose this as a policing initiative so much. I did it more as a public health tool that, yes, it does give the police some teeth to enforce it, but I think that, as Mayor Walsh said, 98% of the people, once you do it, start to pay attention to it.
Other comments or questions from the members?
Just one last comment on that. It was such a strong point, Mr. Chair, on Sunday that they invited the Attorney General in on Sunday's meeting, Maura Healy, and that's how I cited 4037A. I wanted to see where she was going. That's why I sent it to you, Chief, was that she felt, even though it wasn't initially written for this type of issue, her office will support and backs any community that wants to, as Boston did, utilize it, that 4037A fits this, and she will support that.
Ms. Conlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was not an issue that I had given a lot of thought to as towards doing it. I'm open to considering it, but based on the police chief's comments and the information that the town administrator forwarded today from some of the other town administrators in Norfolk County, it seems that there's really not a lot of other communities considering it. I know some of them were more rural or semi-rural communities further away from the city, but Wellesley was one of the towns that was solicited, and I think that response said that they had not considered it. So I'd be more inclined to defer to the police chief on this unless the public health department feels strongly the other way.
Well, that's a good point. Caroline, I think Caroline is still on the line. Hillary, could you unmute? Oh, she's unmuted. Caroline, do you have a view on this?
Yeah, I just unmuted. So I do agree with the basic principle that Richard is talking about. I do. I believe that, people should be staying at home if it's after 9 o'clock, but some people have to go to work, or my husband might be walking the dog after 9. I don't know if you can make the language say strongly recommend people stay home and after 9 o'clock. I don't know what the Boston language says. So, I mean, I do agree with the concept, absolutely, that people shouldn't be out. but I don't want anybody to be punitively, not arrested, but, I don't want to make more work for the police because they're busy enough during the day. I do think that it should be strongly recommended, but I don't want that punitive side to also fall to the police, because I don't think that should happen either, if that makes sense.
It certainly does. I'm just going to let Ms. Collins get in, Richard.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Well, I think this is very complicated, and I really appreciate I think what we all want to do, which is to keep people safer and also to prevent the spread. And you listen to the governor every day, and he says, stay at home, but make sure if you need to go out for a walk, you do that. So right. I have difficulty when I'm thinking about all this. How do we balance this? Do we really want everybody going out in the middle of the day when it's really nice? Probably not. But at the same time, we want people to be healthy. And I agree. We do have difficulty keeping some people on track. And as Richard said, it's going to get really nice out. So I'm not sure what the answer is. I really would like to encourage people to stay home, but also be healthy in a way that's really responsible and stays away from people. So like Katie, I want to entertain things like this that have the potential to really help. I just don't know what that would be.
Other comments or questions? Richard, did you have something?
Yeah, so just to the final point, and as the chief knows, when we talked yesterday, I'm not looking for people to go to jail. I mean, if that happens, it happens. You put yourself in that position, as most people do, that wind up in jail. I really like the way the city of Boston is written. It's written from a public health standpoint. It still has the words, we want you to voluntarily do this. And believe me, I'm not in any way, shape, or form suggesting that the Milton Police should stop someone who's walking their dog or going out for a work by themselves at 9 o'clock at night. But it is getting warmer. You've seen in what is reiterated continually in these meetings, you're seeing anywhere where people can gather and push it, they're doing it. You're seeing the difficulties our own park department is having, even when they try to shut down the parks, people go in and try and change it. So maybe what I'd ask Mr. Chair is, we don't have to act on this now. Maybe everyone could take a look at the Boston's directive from the Boston Public Health Alliance, and maybe if you think, I'll leave it to you. I'm fine either way. If you think or Caroline thinks we should, I want to make sure Caroline reads it. And then maybe we bring it back next week. And the chief, that would be all right with you. As I say, I'm not trying to make any more work for you. I get where you're at.
I would like to see the language, Richard. You're right.
Ms.
See what they say.
Ms. Collins.
Yeah, I did read it, and I agree. I think it's thoughtful. And I wonder if we could do something like that geared towards people congregating. As Richard said, you don't want to stop somebody walking their dog, or as Caroline said, people could be leaving for work, but do we have the ability to disperse groups of people if they're congregating in the evening? And maybe this is something to think about.
So, Ms. Conlon?
So just to that last point, I mean, if we have a group that's congregating at 10 o'clock in the evening, don't we, under the existing declarations and the existing guidance, already have the ability for the police to try to disperse them as they would during the daytime?
That's what I was asking, yeah.
If I can speak?
Yeah, please, Chief. Please, Chief.
Yeah, just answering the most recent question for Katie. That's correct. That exists under the governor's order in the declaration of a state of emergency. So we could enforce, the social distancing at 10 p.m. currently. And just to clarify, I agree with Chief Wells that Boston is pretty soft. I've read it. It uses words, advisory. We're requesting, reasonable efforts for voluntary compliance. There's a lot of very soft terminology. I understand his intent. So I'm not saying I'm against it because there's no need. I'm just saying we don't have a dire need in Milton, but it doesn't mean I'm against the concept I think that was Chief Wells' point. I think that was reiterated by Caroline. I agree with him firmly. I think, they're trying to balance a soft approach, but, maybe not force people, but guide people to doing the right thing, which I firmly agree, this is important to public health. I don't want to say I'm against it. I'm just saying that we haven't had major problems after 9 p.m. Most of our problems have been before that. So I'm just balancing that. But I do respect where, Chief Wells is coming from. And I did read this Boston, declaration. It's pretty soft. It's not aggressive. As far as issues Melinda asked about earlier, will it lead to issues? Yeah, I'm sure we will get more calls, but in no way will that overwhelm us, or are we not able? And I appreciate both Chief Wells and Caroline being concerned that, the police department are doing enough. But, we would deal with it. It wouldn't be critical. It wouldn't overwhelm us at all.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Conlon.
I have one other question. It looks like the Boston order was issued. I had heard on the radio that it was issued by the mayor, but the order seemed to be from the health director. So I guess the question is the Board of Health involved in this with us as your jointly, or is it more in their realm? And I guess just a suggestion, maybe in the interim, we can just put out some general, reiterate some general guidance through the Facebook and Twitter accounts that the town has, just reminding people that stay indoors as much as possible and not to congregate, whether it's daytime or nighttime, and maybe make the suggestion that people stay in that after a certain hour at night.
So Katie.
Mr. Chair. Go ahead. Go ahead. Michael, go ahead.
So what I was going to say is Katie's right that the order in Boston is a Board of Health order, and we'd have to, if we want to parrot that, we'd have to involve our Board of Health. Seems to me our issue is during the day. Our issue is between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. the primary issue, and what we may want to look at is, where the Board of Health in Boston issued this curfew order, we may want to look at perhaps issuing a proclamation strongly advising people to stay home regardless of the time. Because our issue is during the day. I think our primary issue is during the day, not between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. And so perhaps we could, this board could issue a strong advisory or proclamation for people to strongly advising and urging people to stay home during the day as well. So I think that's something we might want to think about if we don't want to just focus on the evening, if we want to try to do something during the day. Richard, did you want to say something?
Yeah, so just to Katie's point, so the mayor did it under the public health has the teeth in this. They're the incident commander. This is a public health emergency. So he did issue it, and that they did author it. Part of the point is, and I think we all know this, and for parents, particularly parents with teenage kids, each night that gets warmer, I want to go here, I want to go here. Let's say it is softly written, but we're going to have to do whatever we can. Whether and you may be right, Mr. Chair. Maybe it's a proclamation, but I think we need to be conservative in this and proactive in this. And to say I wasn't looking to make more work for the Milton PD. They have enough, but I'm not looking to fill up jail cells because jail is the last place people should be right now. But I do think we need to be as strong as we can. And while we may not be Medway or Sharon, we are closer to our neighborhoods. Are more like, as I said, a Dorchester or High Park neighborhood, similar to Quincy. That is say I'm okay with it now. I want to take some time and look at it, and then maybe we can discuss it next week.
And Richard, perhaps what we'll do, I think we had something from town council late this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to look at it. But maybe what we can do is between now and Tuesday, try to put together a couple of alternatives for people to look at, so we can take some action on this perhaps next Tuesday.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Does that make sense? Katie, did you have something to say?
Sure. Yeah, just on the point you made about the daytime hours and encouraging people to stay home. Melinda's point, the governor and all the public health authorities are still not urging, but encouraging people that they should still go and go for a walk or be out in their yard, so long as they're not congregating and observing the 6 feet rule. So you know, if we were to issue something urging people to stay in during the daytime, I don't think we'd want to not encourage anyone to go outside if they're alone or if they're a family member, and so long as they're observing the distancing rules. Is that consistent with what you were suggesting?
It is. You could put something, you know, you could frame it that way. You know, my view is people should stay home as much as possible. You know, I mean, to me, it's just as I said the other night, as frustratingly simple as that. The more you stay home, the less opportunity to get it and the less opportunity to spread it, regardless of where you are. You know, I mean, there are things that are being published now about when you're on running paths and you're on running paths more than 6 feet away, it still could be in the area. So, so I think we could probably frame something that way. Caroline, did you want to say something?
No, I look forward to seeing Boston's language and their declaration, and I'll talk to the Board of Health and with Richard and Town Council, and we could look at this and come up with something for next week. It sounds good.
Okay. We'll make sure you get the the order from the Board of Health in Boston.
Excellent.
I'm sending that over now, Mr. Chair, with Kevin's comments.
All
So
right.
we're all on the same page. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you for that. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Chief, for that. I think we're all set on that score for now. So thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for participating tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Zulus.
Is there anything else on the COVID-19 update? If not, we can move to item 3, which is the updated letters on the 40B site eligibility applications for 648 Canton Ave and 582 Blue Hill Avenue. And I see Judy Barrett is on the line. Hillary, could you unmute Judy, please?
It looks like Judy has muted herself, so I can't unmute her.
Oh,
Judy, you should be able to.
Oh, there she goes. Oh, she went out and she went, Judy went back into mute, went out for a second. Oh, there you go. So I think we had updated, the idea, Judy, was we discussed the letters on Tuesday night. I think we're all in agreement that the thrust of the letters is good, that the letters are very well done. We had a few tweaks and a few comments, and we wanted to incorporate a few things from the Historical Commission. Not a whole lot of change, but I see that, I think I saw in my email that we did receive something. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to look at them. But do you want to preface that discussion with anything, or?
Sure. No, I thought it would be helpful if I was available in case you needed to speak with me. Yeah, I did send, really within like 15 minutes of your meeting, a revision on both letters, and I did incorporate content from the Historical Commission in both cases, which I thought was pretty helpful. The changes you had requested, Mike, are in there. I think I caught what Melinda had asked for. What I couldn't find, that I was frustrated, is that I think Katie also sent a comment and I couldn't find it. So Katie, I'll just say, if you see the letters and your comment isn't addressed, it's my fault. I just could not find the email. So if you send it to me again, I'll take care of it. I'm drowning in Milton email right now, so I just couldn't find everything.
Judy, I didn't send any. I had just mentioned some on the call the other night, and I think I had sent some to the town administrator previously, but I think they were incorporated. I have not seen the drafts that you referenced, though. They haven't come over right before the meeting.
Yeah, I just literally sent them, Katie, just a few minutes before the meeting. It's been kind of crazy in here this week.
Did they go to the town administrator?
I sent them to Mike and Melinda.
Okay, I don't have them. So.
Do you want me to send them to everybody else? I can do that right now.
The thing that's not in there is the 10 units for the Central Ave D. That I think that might be the one that you're talking about, because I had mentioned that.
I'm sorry.
That. No. So it's just just the addition of the 4 units to make a total of 10.
Okay.
I think
Could I ask, Melinda, just in the interest of making sure I don't mess this up again, can one of you just literally, take the Word document, put that note in there and send it back to me and I'll take care of it?
Yes. Katie, you had specific language which I didn't capture. Do you want to do that, or do you want me to do it and send it to you and you can check it?
Of the 10 units?
Yes.
I thought that Mike Zulus had incorporated into.
I thought he had too, but it's not here now that I'm looking at these letters.
Huh, because I started with Mike's revision as a base, so I'm not
Okay.
sure what happened.
Well, maybe I just missed it, but I saw it in Mike's.
It may be in one of the letters, and I think
And not the other.
One,
Okay.
I forgot to put it in the second.
Okay.
So we just need to carry it over.
Oh, okay.
So it's
I see.
not in the Canton Ave letter.
Okay, that's
But
probably what
It is
happened.
the other one. It's
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chair, I just forwarded those letters to the select board that Judy sent our way, right just about the beginning of this meeting.
Yeah, it was just before the meeting started, Mike. You're absolutely right.
No, and thank you for those, Judy. I appreciate it. There are a lot of, as this board knows, there's been a lot of community engagement on all 4 of the 40Bs. So there's, I wouldn't say inundated, but every email I get, I've been sending to Judy so I could see how she's been mired in Milton emails. So thank you for that, Judy.
Well, thank you.
We have a very engaging constituency, which is great.
Yeah, it is good.
So, so we need to get these 2 letters are due to be filed next Wednesday, the 15th. So we need to get them up. We want to get them up on the website to see if there's any feedback that we should, any final feedback. We're going to have another meeting Tuesday night, the 14th, to finally bless these before we send them out on the 15th. So I would like to get them up on the website sooner rather than later. So perhaps if the members take a look tonight and no one has any objection, or if there's any tweak, I think we've all agreed to them in substance. But if there's any further tweak, we can do that. But if there's no objection from the members, I'd like to get these up on the website by tomorrow morning.
Mike, could I just make a suggestion?
Yes, please, Judy.
I think what should go up on the website should include the graphics from Cheryl on the planning board.
Yeah.
Because that's referred to as an exhibit in both letters.
Yeah, I mean, I assume that would, because it's an exhibit. It's a letter.
Right.
So I assume.
So do you want me to create a PDF and put that in with the letter for purposes of posting on the website? I can do that tonight.
That would be great.
Would it be useful to also include a link to the planning board's meeting where that exhibit is largely explained? Or
March
I mean,
26th meeting?
Yeah, there are a couple of there's a table and a piece of it that's missing, but it's a small piece. But I don't know if it would be helpful, if it would be, I don't want to say confusing to people, but it might be too overwhelming. And we wouldn't want to include it in the letter either. That's the difficulty. So
yeah, my sense would be to just, we want to get the draft up for people to look at, and they can always go to the meeting if they. But I think we want to kind of focus on the draft.
Okay.
Okay, I'll put those together tonight, and I'll send them off to you.
May I ask, Judy? Tony mentioned, and he's not on the call today, but he mentioned that he had some changes at the last meeting, and I don't know if they were sent over to you or what they were. If you could just maybe call them out in the latest draft.
Yeah. So he did send me a text just before the meeting. The only issue that he had was the piece about the bike rack and the term cynical nod, and he didn't think it was a big issue. He just didn't know if we should soften it. That was his only comment. So,
was his concern that cynical nod is an inappropriate comment, or what?
I'm just reading a text, Judy, so I'm not.
Oh, okay, all right.
Characterized.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I go along with softening that a little bit. It is a nod, and maybe the word cynical is not as. Maybe we could pick something else as in Well, I don't have a thesaurus on me right now, but
How
something
about a
else-
half
Oh
naked
my
nod?
God.
Well, no, I don't think that's just as offensive, really. But or maybe more so. Some people would rather be known as cynical, but perhaps an ineffective or something that doesn't really go far enough. Something along those lines.
All right.
Yeah,
I think your folks are much more
something more
diplomatic.
indicative of language you'd get out of our board, which, that's all.
That's fine. I think you folks are far more diplomatic than I am. But I get to be the consultant, right? And you're the select board. So I will take your lead on this. It's your letter.
Right. No, your take on things is very comforting. So thank you.
Judy, you want to change jobs? I'll take your job. You take mine.
No, I would make
Yours
a terrible
pays
member
better.
of the select
Yours
board.
pays better.
All right. So
I think we should thank the planning board and in particular the chair for the graphics. I've only took a cursory look at them, and I'm hoping to spend a little more time going through them. But I know that this is similar to what Cheryl, you guys had done for the master planning committee when we were working on the Milton Village zoning. So it's very helpful, I think, to have that showing the density and the closeness to the homes on Holmes Lane and the impact on the abutters. So that I think that will make a big difference, and hopefully it will show mass housing what our real concern is, if these really are out of character with the existing housing.
Ms. Collins.
Also, I mentioned earlier that I had spoken with Cheryl about the packet, and I think maybe she's spoken with Judy about making sure that the appropriate parts of the graphics are with each letter, so that each letter just has addresses it.
Yes.
So, and she also wants to know when we need their draft of their residence letter. They're discussing it tonight, but she wants to make sure that we have it in plenty of time. So.
Well, I think Mike gave the boards and committees a date to get it in, Mike. Isn't that right, Mike?
It is.
Yes, yeah. I believe we've received everything from the boards and committees.
Oh, no, on East Milton, Mike.
East Milton.
We're hoping to get a draft of East Milton next week. So if they get us something, what's today? Thursday. If they get us something by the beginning of the week, I think we have to get East Milton in a week from Monday.
Right.
Thank you. Okay. I wondered about the deadline. You've told me several times, and I just have had trouble retaining it.
So it's going to be a push next week.
Yeah.
So sooner is certainly better.
Okay.
The sooner we do it, the better.
We should ask for the planning board to have. I mean, they're discussing it tonight, so it sounds as if Monday would be the day we'd want it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's better.
Okay. Thank you.
So I do want to recognize, the planning board obviously has done a lot of work, and we thank them for that. But the other boards and committees have as well. They've all given us a lot. Particularly the historical commission gave us a lot of good input yesterday, and so we want to recognize all the boards and committees that have really given us a lot of good input, and the residents. A lot of really good feedback. There's a lot of resident feedback that is reflected in those letters that we've incorporated and that Judy helped incorporate. So, I think we've gotten a lot of good feedback, and hopefully we will make a persuasive case on behalf of the town. All right, so we'll look to get those up on the website by tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Anything else on this? All
I'm
right.
fine with it. Thank you, Judy, for everything on it.
So I should sign off then? Is that okay?
You're welcome to stay, Judy, but but you're certainly not needed.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Take care, bye.
All right, item 5 is the discussion approval of the animal shelter RFP. My understanding is that is going to be deferred. Is that right, Mr. Denny? Are we deferring that item?
That's correct. John Flynn and Kevin Freitag have to put together a separate invitation for bids for the project manager. Doesn't expect that material to be ready for Tuesday's meeting, but if we meet after Wednesday of next week, he should have it all ready to go.
Okay. All right, great. Item 6, discussion Memorial Day event. Is this you, Mike, to tee this one up?
Yes, and we have our most bestest Veteran Services Director, Kevin Cook, here.
Yes. Hi, Kevin.
Yes, good evening. I wanted to just open, before we get into discussion of Memorial Day, and just update everybody regarding the Soldiers Home in Holyoke. At this point, the latest news we have is 27 veterans there have passed away. It's a terrible, terrible tragedy at a time like this, that our most vulnerable veterans are unfortunately paying a price for mismanagement, I believe, from every report I've read, that it was going on well before this became a crisis. And it's my hope that this will be the wake-up call, that this kind of thing cannot go on in our facilities in the state of Massachusetts. It's a terrible thing that these soldiers had to pay for others' negligence. And I hope that they get to the bottom of it and hold the people fully responsible. So I just wanted to make that statement at the beginning for the board. If that was okay.
No, absolutely, Kevin. And, you know, we certainly, I'm sure you know, that's why we have the flags put at half staff this week, certainly after the governor's order. But we recognize that in our last meeting. It's an awful thing.
So Memorial Day, probably this year, will take on added significance, and through, like many cases, through tragedy comes triumph. On Monday, I sent a email out to Mike, members of the American Legion, Frank Stout, and a few other people who've been involved with Memorial Day plans, just to basically put the question out there, saying, you know, we need to kind of think about this. We're 7 weeks out. So I will update you on what I've done as preparations. We do have flags. The flags are probably arriving either tomorrow or Monday at the cemetery. I did go to a new vendor because the vendor we'd used in the past had some issues, and I'd ordered the flags in February. And when I called him about a week or so ago, he said, well, the factory hasn't come through with it. So I just told him I can't let it go, and I got a new order. We actually saved 2 cents a flag with the new vendor. And when you're talking about 18 gross a flag, that's a good price. Of course, the state reimburses us 100% for the cost of the flags. So my first concern, of course, is making sure we do get out to flag the graves at Milton Cemetery. I believe this can be done even under the restrictions of social distancing and taking the proper precautions. Normally, I would take the first Saturday in May and pick that as the date to go, but of course that's going to be May 2nd, and the governor's order right now stands at May 4th. So, and I know the first weekend after that order gets lifted, people will want to go off and do other tasks that may have been at off. So we're talking now instead of the 9th, I'm looking at possibly May 16th and making that a volunteer operation day to flag the graves in Milton Cemetery. And I know there's going to be a lot still going on, and there'll be a lot of people still worried about different situations. But I'm hoping that a lot of people who've been cooped up for about 5 or 6 weeks will come out and assist us. You know, there's no problem with being socially distanced in the cemetery, as long as we take the proper precautions and set up some of the stations, kind of like what they're doing for the testing. Have one location where people come in, have a second separate location where they pick up a bundle or 2 or 3 of flags, and then direct them and say, okay, go out to this section, and just basically make sure that they're understanding the principles of keeping space between themselves and others as we decorate the grave.
Thank you, Kevin. And you'll keep us updated, as that proceeds.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeking guidance from the board because I mean, ultimately it's an event, and as I've stated before in the past, it's a you know, responsibility of the town. So I want to make sure that whatever I put out there, whatever I'm planning, will meet the approval of the board, and that, you know, you guys will love the input of all the parties involved. Lisa, her and I talked to her, and she said, you know, sounds like we can do something, and so she's gonna be fully on board with it, and I think that's important. The actual event is another subject entirely, of course, and that's of concern. You know, I want to get as many people's input as possible. I believe we can still hold a ceremony. I think it would be best to have that ceremony in the cemetery. We have the proper loud systems, loudspeakers, so, you know, having people spaced out across an area of the cemetery based on what Lisa thinks would work best. You know, we can allow people to actually be there, but I believe because of the number of citizens who, you know, want to be there but can't, I would like to see if we can get Milton Cable to cover it live, so we can have people at home who can participate and watch the ceremonies that we will put on. We do have a featured speaker. He's a police officer from the city of Melrose, and he's also a member of the crew of USS Constitution that I sailed with about 21 years ago. He's a very eloquent speaker and does a great rendition of some different writings on the ship. And, you know, I thought it would be he'd make a good speaker. So I had asked him prior to all this, and he said, yeah, he'd be honored. So, I mean, we already have a featured speaker. We just have to put together some kind of a agenda. I know the schools will be under siege, of course, to get back to business. And I don't believe we would have the full chorus of the band ready to go. Plus, of course, presents the problems of social distancing for them in a group. But what my suggestion is that I could reach out to the schools and see if we could seek one or two soloists who could carry the day for us. So we might see if there's one or two people in the chorus who could come to sing the songs that we would normally have, and maybe one or two players on selected instruments who could, you know, conduct the musical part of our normal program.
So Kevin, the only suggestion that I have, and I hesitate to do it because of how inundated she is with other things, is that at some point it probably makes sense to consult with Caroline Kinsella, our public health director, reviewing those plans. But we need to be very conscious of her other responsibilities at this point. But I think, you know, before, in my suggestion is that before we try to lock down on what the plan might be, I think, you know, she may well have to weigh in, and things may change between now and then. They're likely to change between now and May. So, any other comments or questions from members?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Richard, I have a couple comments. First, Kevin, thank you for, you know, how I feel about this. So, to the chair's point, I believe that Caroline's going to have to sign off on anything like this we want to do. I think that I heard today that Boston canceled their Memorial Day parade, and they're in the same boat as we are. The second thing, Kevin, is I know that we're all hoping and praying for this to be lifted on May 4th, but the governor in his comments today used a very strong if it is lifted on May 4th. So that could be extended. Just my thought too on the flags. I know you usually do this in one day. Just to say if maybe we could get groups of 10 spread it over a few days, even during your work days, because they're not in school. Have Lisa cordon off the cemetery, 10 in a quadrant, and get that done. I think that's definitely a priority, and the sooner the better, I think, for everyone. I think it'll probably put you at ease. And then back to just my final point, to the chair's point, I think Caroline's really going to have a lot to say about any type of gathering moving forward, especially in a month as early as May. But understanding how important, I think your idea of putting it on live, I think all is great. I think that's, you know, definitely one of the things we're going to do. as you know, the last thing going back to Caroline is we got a lot of seniors on Memorial Day, and they're still going to be our most high risk population. So thank you for that, and whatever I can do, you know, I'm there with you. Whatever I can do, I will gladly support you as always.
Other,
All right, thank you.
Ms. Conlon. Oh, sorry, Kevin, did you have something?
I just want to say thank you, Richard. His support is always, you know, it helps. You know, I know I can reach out to him at any time, and any of you anytime. You know, we're going to make sure we do whatever we do is it's safe for our residents and safe for our seniors. But I want to make sure that we can include them if they can't be there.
Ms. Conlon.
Thank you, Kevin and Mr. Chair. So I agree we should have a modified ceremony that day. Kevin, are you proposing then that we cancel the parade and the portion of it that's usually held at the gazebo and just focus everything at the cemetery?
That would be my best option, I believe. Not because I want to exclude those items, but I think they're always great to see. But the logistics of that, and then having large groups move from one location to another only complicates the situation. I think, you know, we could still have a few veterans do the flag ceremony if that's important to the Legion members, and I know it is normally, but I think the main ceremony, we should just set up the people come to the cemetery, space out where however, you know, we can organize it with everyone's input and following the guidelines, and have the ceremony occur in the cemetery as it had done in the past.
That makes sense to me. I like your idea about televising it live. Mike Lynch can accommodate that, and I'm sure he'll make every effort to do it if at all possible. And I like your idea about contacting some of the soloists or two from the high school, and that would add to the day if we're able to do that. But I think we should really encourage people, not depending on where this is. Obviously, it's still several weeks away, but I think it probably is likely, as Richard mentioned, that May 4th would be extended. So we may not want to promote this too much and just let people know that we're really encouraging people to not participate this year and to watch it on television and have a limited number of people at the cemetery.
Yes. I appreciate your support, Katie. You've been one of the best allies I could ask for. Also, your work at the COA and with the other people, you know, it's just really appreciated, because I know I can count on every one of you to be there if I need something.
Any other comments or questions?
No, just that I think that this looks as if it's going to shape up into, as something Kevin said, an event that has added significance and weight to it, and yet hopefully hope and a feeling of coming through something together. So I'm sure that we can do something meaningful. So thank you, Kevin.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Kevin, thank you. This will be continued, and we will figure out a way to have a great event and a meaningful event at the end of May, no matter what.
Yes, and I'm sure the people in Milton will appreciate it. Like I said, I think it's going to bring on added significance this year, especially in light of everything that's going on. So, you know, as always, our own residents will make us all proud. Milton is just an amazing community. You know, growing up in Canton, you know, I was never hanging out there a lot, but, you know, it's just a beautiful town all overall. People have been extremely friendly, welcoming me into the community. And after 4 years, I'm glad to say I should have spent more time in Milton. One other note I wanted to share, and this is a personal note. In Canton, the public health director passed away. And I just got word through a couple connections I have still in Canton, John Ciccatelli, and he was a classmate of my brother's. So it's non-COVID related. It's believed he suffered a heart attack.
Oh, that's terrible. So,
I just wanted to share that news because I'm, you know, Canton and Milton being so close together.
yeah, particularly at this time, that's an awful, I mean, it's always an awful loss, but boy, oh boy, at this time, that's terrible.
Again, Mike, thank you so much for all your help and support. Mike Denny, I could not ask for a better, direct support and supervisor. He's always there for me. I was surprised, about a week or so ago it was a Saturday night, and it was about 7:30 at night, and my phone just pinged, and it was Mike, and he was just checking in and says, everything good? You need anything? The sign of good leadership is always making sure you're checking in with the troops, and Mike has done that numerous times, so I want to make sure he gets recognized at this time. I can't imagine the weight that he's under right now and the burden that he's shouldering, but he's doing it with the kind of leadership that our community definitely needs.
That's surely true. Surely true.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Chair, if I might, how about we flatten the curve and then spend a wonderful day in the memory of our veterans? How about that, Kevin?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, great. Good way to end the discussion. Thank you, Kevin. We'll keep going on this and make sure we make it happen.
Yeah, and I'll update Mike and anything else I think needs to get passed on. I'll make sure you get, and I'll reach out to the health agent and make sure we get some guidelines from her.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a good evening, everybody. Stay safe.
All right.
Thanks, Kevin. Good night.
Item 7, discussion approval of the COVID-19 emergency expenditures allocation. I just want to alert the members that we only have this line until 7, and hopefully we'll finish with it a little bit before 7. So I'm not sure if item 7, if this is a Mike Dennehy lead off or a finance subcommittee lead off. Who wants to take the ball on this?
I can start it off. It was actually presented by Member Wells to me. Just with the things that are going on, everything's happening so quickly. We've received some requests from departments to make some COVID-19 proactive safety measures. And Member Wells had suggested that this board possibly free up some cash to do that on the fly and not have to wait for the next board meeting to sign off on that. Richard, do you want to explain your thought process?
Yeah, so thank you, Michael, and thank you, Mr. Chair. And so I was thinking of this as, they each will have needs, particularly public health and our public safety ones, but I had a great conversation with Amy today, and I think at this time, I had thought of maybe taking our reserve fund transfer and earmarking it, but I don't think we'll have to do that. One of the things that the governor's legislation allows that anything COVID-19 related that they can purchase it. And one of the good things now that we are in both a state and a federal declaration of emergency, there will be some monies coming to be able to reimburse. So I'm much more comfortable now with not doing anything. And as Amy said, she will let Michael know right away if something big came up. But she's been in great communication with both fire, police, and public health, and I think we'll be all right now. I wasn't aware until I read the governor's language. I think we'll be okay. I don't think we'll have to do anything.
Yeah, I know that.
I'd rather.
The finance subcommittee's been on top of this. So I don't know, Katie, do you want to add something?
Sure. This was the first I had heard of this issue, so if this could come to the finance committee too, if there's any issue, maybe the town administrator or the town accountant can bring it to our attention as well. We have not had a discussion about that, but we're talking about the 20 and 21 budgets, and all prompted by COVID and the situation with the economy and potential state aid. So
right.
We did have a joint meeting with the school committee. There's really not much to report tonight. I think it was on our agenda for next week.
Right. Although Amy did issue a request that everyone keep track of their COVID-related expenses, because the governor did put out that I don't know what you would call it, a directive saying that we are to keep, I guess it was actually the Department of Revenue said to keep track of those expenses so that they can be reimbursed. So I know that she had done that with her department.
I just meant that the agenda item and Mr. Roll's discussion with the accountant and the town administrator was not So they got all the findings. It was
Yeah, so,
the item on the agenda.
Mr. Chair, so to my point, and I apologize, Katie, it was in my mind, in my thought, both to Melinda's point, which is the normal operations in any declaration of emergency, and Katie, remember from 2015, we wanted all expenditures for that 100-inch snow because there was money to recoup from that, as in any emergency we've ever been through. But my thought was, when I started to see it, and in a way, I want to protect every dollar that's in the reserve fund that's there now for the issues that you're dealing with going both in the final quarter of 20 as well as going into 2021. So my thought initially was to perhaps have a discussion about earmarking perhaps up to as much as $10,000, but I don't think we'll have to do that. I was much more confident after I talked to Amy about this today. So I've completely changed my thought process on where I thought I was going with that, so I'm fine.
Mr. Chair, can I just bring up, should we go back to the COVID item on the agenda, because the town administrator raised the issue about the letter that was proposed by Mayor Curtatone and some of the other mayors, but we didn't discuss that, and I actually have some concerns with it.
All right, so we finished with item 7. Let's go back to item 2, the COVID-19 update. Mike, do you want to fill out that thought on the letter from Mayor Curtatone and I think Mayor McGee from Lynn, that they drove the letter to some other municipalities have signed? Mike, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Chair. The updated letter came in today, and they're looking for support. The current document is signed by Mayor Curtatone from Somerville, Adam Chapdelaine, town manager in Arlington, the mayor of Attleboro, city of Cambridge, city manager Lou DiPasquale, town of Chelsea, city manager, Mayor DiMaria of Everett, city of Framingham, town of Hamilton. So the list has grown. There was 4 individuals that sponsored it, Mayor Curtatone, Mayor DiMaria, the Chelsea town manager. Basically, the letter reads, and if you give me a second to read through it, this is the updated one I received around 4:45 today.
I know we're short on time here, but I don't know if you want to read the whole letter. I know we've got.
Yes. So basically, I'll read the first 2 paragraphs. Thanks to you and your team for your continued leadership during COVID-19, and it's addressed to Governor Baker. We appreciate you have moved quickly to file executive orders and legislation to address the issues facing cities, and have made your leadership available to work with us to answer our questions and respond to our concerns. We feel strongly that now is the time to turn the Department of Health's Public Health stay-home advisory into stay-home order and further limit the long list of essential businesses. A more stringent stay-home order will provide clear and critical guidance that for the next several weeks at least, residents shouldn't leave their homes. We urge you to narrow the list of essential businesses and leave open those businesses that support manufacturing or distribution of COVID-19 response supplies. We also request a temporary statewide moratorium on non-essential public construction for a period no less than 3 weeks. There is a little bit more in the letter, but that's what they're asking for. Let me just check the email just to see what time. I believe they're asking for support back to them. Bear with me again, sorry. I think it's 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. If this board wants to take a position on that, yeah, please do so by 9 a.m. tomorrow. And they described that the letter has less strong language than what was in the previous one. This is the second version, and there have been more communities that have jumped on. You can see it in the email I forwarded to you. Basically, the gist of it is these communities are appreciating what the Baker-Polito administration has done, but in light of what I think we've been talking about all along, with some people not getting the message, they're asking for further closures.
Yeah, my concern is that I'm not in favor of this because I think the Baker-Polito administration is being guided by public health authorities and the medical community. You know, for instance, one of the requests is to narrow the list of essential businesses and leave open only gas stations, parcel services, grocery stores, pharmacy. I don't know what they're proposing to exclude from this list. So I support what the Baker administration is doing. I'm not sure that this is needed and that we need to be asking them to take more stringent action. So my position is I'm not in favor of this request, but obviously other members of the board may have different views. I wanted to just state what my thought was on this.
Mike, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I got it. Other comments or questions on this?
Can I just add?
Oh, go ahead.
So Richard was on the call Sunday. This was part of the mayor's manager's call. You could hear the frustration from some of the mayors, some of the larger cities, and they are dealing with something that Milton fortunately doesn't have to deal with, which is a homeless population and how to deal with that population and what to do with it. And I heard some frustration about the timeliness of administrative orders from the State House to deal with that. So there was a lot more context around how this was generated. Richard, you were on that call. That's what I heard on the call. It seemed to be larger cities that were kind of getting behind this momentum because they have obviously a larger appetite for congregating and the lack of social distancing.
Richard, do you have anything? You have something?
Go ahead. So you're right. And just to Katie's point, so on the call this week, they had public health was briefed them first before they even came to this decision. It was very informative, and I'm sitting here looking at my television as I'm talking to you, and the headline on every national story today is COVID skyrockets, 800 dead today alone. So that was, and A.G. Healy was on, and she was getting it as well. So my only question is, and I've not really decided one way or the other because I just looked at it, but I do hear there is a great deal of frustration. Katie, you would be opposed because you think it's too restrictive?
My sense is that the Baker administration has been doing a good job and that they've issued a stay-at-home advisory. I don't know that it needs to be in order. I think they're being guided by public health authorities. I'm not sure this is really our role to step in and tell them what we think they should be doing. I know some of the people who signed this letter and I respect their views. And maybe the larger cities that have homeless populations are dealing with different issues than we are, but it's a little unclear to me how we would narrow down this list of essential businesses. So I'm not sure whom they're proposing to exclude, and maybe it may be good reason not to exclude whoever they're exclude.
So for a community like us, it would be more like, and as we see, Mayor Walsh is just taking a position. I think he said today they've shut down 90 jobs in the city in the past 2 days. He's doing it. For a community like us, it's trying to keep the workers who would say reside here, who are traveling, going to work in construction jobs in downtown Boston, from coming to the cities and going to work in those jobs. I think that was the emphasis. But Are
you talking construction jobs?
Yes. Yes. That was some of them. That was one of the big ones.
Yeah, I mean, the
guidance from
town council is that the governor's order supersedes the mayor's orders. So I'm not sure that we really should be weighing in on that.
Ms. Collins.
Well, I think that's what I'm understanding though, because his order does supersede that they're asking him to now change that order. But I feel like I don't know if anybody else watched the governor today at 1. I had an opportunity and I may have misunderstood, but he did mention in response to a question which I couldn't hear that some cities and towns or municipalities have taken some more stringent measures. I guess for me, I have to say, Katie, when we read the original version of this, I wrote back to Mike Dennehy saying that I wasn't in favor of him just signing it without talking to us, because this whole structure about mayors and managers then leaves out part of our team, which is the select board. I mean, the six of us really sort of function as a mayor. And so I think it's been putting Mike in a difficult position and us in a difficult position. So for that reason, I wasn't in favor of just signing this. And I understand that we do not have the same issues with a homeless population. We've basically shut down any personal care business or something like that that could really cause problems. So we just don't have the same dynamics coming on. That being said, I do want to support other communities. I don't see how this helps with the homeless situation. And I feel as if they might be better served if we try to help them push on that a little more. I just, but it's the construction here that I think has the most significance for us.
So I will say that I do support this. I do support the letter. I do support more stringent measures. I do support the idea that the governor, of asking the governor to issue a more stringent stay-at-home order. However, I certainly don't want to have a divided board. If we're going to take that action, it needs to be unanimous. So I wouldn't propose it unless all were in favor of it. But I think that the level of the crisis does merit more stringent action, more stringent stay-at-home order. But again, there are very good reasons that have been articulated here not to do it, and I certainly wouldn't suggest it absent the will of the board being unanimous, because in this issue, I think we need to be unanimous. So we can talk about it again. We can keep it in mind. We have different views on it, and that's why we have a select board, to have different views, and we can keep having the discussion. Yeah, Mr.
I'm
Wells.
sorry, mind you. So I agree with you. I want to support it only because I'm listening to them and I'm looking at this and I'm saying that collectively, and I'm usually more liberal, it's the time to be conservative. I just do. It's just, I get their point. Granted, we may not have a homeless population, but that's just one issue. That was just, I think, more on the construction sites, and I think that's why Mayor Walsh is taking the position he's taking is, and he starts every conference, people need to stay home. And Michael Denny, you can tell me where I'm wrong. I believe Attorney General Haley was agreeing with them and actually was encouraging them that she felt they should do this as well. That she was speaking to everyone, every community, and that this is definitely, we are skating on thin ice, or if we're skaters, and if as one who's been a boater my whole life, we're navigating in uncharted waters. So I just think anything we can do to save human life and to protect the sanctity of human life, we need to do it. I just do. But I agree with Mr. Zulus.
So I'm sorry, Richard. We're running up on time here. We only have this line for 4 more minutes. So I think that, if anything else, is going to compel us to table this discussion, unless anyone else wants.
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. We can put it off till next Tuesday. I'm fine with it. It just came in tonight.
So yes.
But it's 9 o'clock tomorrow.
Isn't that the issue?
Yeah.
We have a meeting at 9 o'clock tomorrow?
No. What she's saying is, what she's saying is that they're requesting that the letter be signed by 9 o'clock tomorrow. But if this board isn't ready to take unanimous action, we could always supplement. And this is the second letter that has come down in 2 days. So we could always do something and supplement that support on Tuesday. So if we want to take a look more at the implications of this. So,
Mr. Chair, can I just ask Mr. Denny just one question? What's your feelings on this? Do you want us to support this?
Just having been on the call and listening to the Attorney General, I think she took the temperature of the room, and I think most of the people were speaking are most of the people who generated this letter. I understand what they're looking for. I worked in the capital city for quite a long time. That I think they have different frustrations and problems than we do. They have a larger ability for people to congregate. And I think the Attorney General did a very good job of saying she would support any town in any measures they would take. I don't think my understanding was she wasn't telling everyone to support this, but she would support Everett if they went in one direction, Milton if they went in a different direction. I think she was letting the communities know that in these uncharted waters, the action you take, not to beg for forgiveness after the fact, but take the precautionary measures that you think are necessary for your city or town, and the Attorney General's office will back you up on that. And I don't think you can paint everybody with the same brush.
So I think what we need, based on that, what we need to do is determine what's right for Milton on this, and we need to have a consensus on that. And I think this is the action. If we're going to take some kind of action and support some kind of action, or try to or ask the governor to do something, I think it's something that we need consensus on. And so we have 1 minute, so I'm going to have to make the motion to adjourn to executive session. I'll move to adjourn to executive session, not to return to open session. The purpose of the executive session is threefold. One, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, specifically with respect to the Milton Patrol Officers Unit. Two, to discuss strategy, well, let me step back. One, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, specifically the Milton Patrol Officers Unit, the discussion of which in open session would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. Two, executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, specifically the Milton Superior Officers Unit, the discussion of which in open session would have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. Three, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, specifically Milton Fire Department unit, Milton Fire Department unit, 111 unit. The discussion of which in open session could have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Roll call vote. Ms. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Wells, we're adjourned and we'll
Yes.
WebEx.